In 1983, Shirley Caesar married the man she loved. 31 years later, he died, and her whole life fell apart. Her stepchildren turned against her and fought over his money. Fake news stories said she had died. Even her own brothers and sisters said she was using their mom's pain to get famous. This woman gave away 75% of the money she made to help others, but she couldn't find peace for herself. The worst part wasn't losing her singing voice. It was losing her family. Shirley Caesar was born on October 13, 1938 in Durham, North Carolina. She was the 10th kid out of 13 children. Her family was so poor they barely had enough food, clothes, or room in their house. Her dad, James Caesar, worked long hours at a tobacco factory and sang on weekends with a gospel group called the Just Come Four. Everyone in the neighborhood knew him for his deep singing voice. But no matter how much he sang, they never had enough money for a house full of 8 girls and 5 boys. Shirley's mom, Hallie, couldn't walk properly because she was partly disabled, but she still found ways to feed all 13 kids with almost nothing. Shirley learned early that staying alive wasn't about being comfortable. It was about giving things up and being strong. Everything changed in 1945. Shirley was only 7 years old when her dad suddenly fell down from a brain seizure. He died right there, and her childhood ended in that moment. With no money coming in and 13 hungry kids to feed, Shirley felt like she had no choice. She decided she would sing in churches to bring money home. At just 7 years old, she became the person her family counted on. There was no time to cry, no time to be sad. Her voice became her job, her way to help the family survive. No one let her take time to heal. Instead, she stood up and started singing so her family wouldn't go hungry. By age 10, Shirley was already making church walls shake with her powerful low singing voice. People called her Baby Shirley not because she was tiny, but because she looked so young and sweet. She had to stand on boxes just so people could see her. But when she sang, even grown-up men would cry. At 14, she had no real home. She traveled across the South all by herself, waiting all night in bus stations that only allowed black people in certain areas, holding on to a cherry Coke and a hamburger from her mom. Some preachers paid her 50 cents for singing all week long, then kept hundreds of dollars for themselves. But she kept singing, stomping her feet, moving the crowd, turning every show into an explosion of sound. That voice was all she had. Her mom's health kept getting worse. Hallie's leg was paralyzed, and she couldn't walk without someone helping her. At just 12 years old, Shirley became her mom's full-time helper. She changed her clothes, helped her walk around, and still found time to sing in churches to pay the bills. She kept doing this for over 30 years. Even after she became famous, she never paid anyone to help. It was always Shirley doing everything by herself. Her mom's pain became the thing that pushed her forward. It made her stronger, even when it broke her heart. In 1956, Shirley finished Hillside High School and went to college to learn about business. But something weird happened during a typing test. She heard a voice say her name. When she asked the girl next to her if she had said something, the girl said no. Later that day, Shirley heard the voice again, even louder this time. It said, "I have called you since before you were born, and I have chosen your voice to preach the gospel." That voice shook her to her bones. She quit college right away. Her teachers were shocked. Her family didn't get it, but Shirley knew this wasn't coming from regular people. It was coming from God. On August 15, 1958, when she was just 19, Shirley joined the Caravans, one of the biggest gospel singing groups in America. She walked up to Albertina Walker and boldly said she could sing every part, and she proved it. Her energy on stage shocked everyone. She didn't just sing, she moved around, she danced, she cried. Her style broke every gospel music rule. During her first-time recording on December 30, 1958, the sound engineers couldn't believe how powerful her voice was. The Caravans became famous quickly, selling over 50,000 records that year. But behind all the success, Shirley was still sleeping on buses and skipping meals. She had actually recorded her first song way back in 1951 when she was only 13. The song was called "I'd Rather Have Jesus," but record companies said no to it. They said she was too young to understand real pain, so she sold it by herself. Traveling through the Carolinas with a one-legged preacher, she performed in old barns and tiny churches, making $5 or $15 at most. The record sold less than 1,000 copies. Shirley thought about quitting, but she didn't. From 1958 to 1966, Shirley traveled with the caravans all across the Deep South. They did more than 300 shows a year. Most places separated black and white people. White gospel groups made up to $800 per show. The caravans were paid $150. In 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama, they got turned away from 17 hotels and had to sleep on their bus. In Mississippi and Georgia, she saw police spray water hoses on black people in the audience. Once in Montgomery, people threw bottles at them during a show. Shirley used these bad moments in her music. Her songs became secret messages for equal rights. Her voice became a weapon of hope. But by 1966, Shirley had enough. She was making only $75 a week, while male singers made 5 times more money. She asked Albertina Walker for more control and a fair share of the money. Albertina said no, even when Shirley asked for $100 and 5% of the record sales, so Shirley walked away. Everyone told her not to do it. Magazines said she would fail. Record company bosses said she'd never sell albums without a group. Even Mahalia Jackson told her not to go solo, but Shirley didn't listen. She signed with HOB Records for $50,000, the biggest contract ever given to a black female gospel artist at that time. In 1967, she put out her first solo album, My Testimony. It sold 15,000 copies that year. Critics didn't know what to think about it. The songs were raw and full of pain. She sang about being poor, racism, and losing faith. Some people said it was too personal. One magazine even said it wasn't Christian enough, but Shirley didn't care. She was telling the truth and people listened. Her honesty built a new kind of gospel audience. In 1969, she worked again with Reverend James Cleveland. During one church service, they made up an entire song right there on the spot. The crowd felt like the ground was shaking. That recording became one of the most powerful live gospel albums ever made. Cleveland had worked with Aretha Franklin before, but he said Shirley had something different. Her preaching and singing were the same thing. Even after all that, the gospel music world still treated her unfairly. She made 30 to 40% less money than men. Producers told her to calm down. Contracts made her ask men for permission before putting out songs. Posters focused on what she looked like, not how she sounded. Concerts listed her as a special guest instead of the main star. Even when she was the main reason people showed up, but she kept going. She never stopped. When she got her first Grammy nomination in 1969, everyone thought she'd win, but she lost. Years later, it came out that the votes had been messed with. One of her competitors had a manager on the voting panel. That manager had money riding on who would win. Shirley finally won in 1971, but the damage was already done. The truth didn't come out until 2020. The Grammy voting system was completely changed in 2021 because of scandals like hers. Also in 1969, she appeared on The Mike Douglas Show. Most guests told jokes or sang soft songs, but Shirley brought the full fire of gospel music to the stage. She sang, shouted, and played her tambourine. The phone lines lit up. CBS got over 3,000 calls in just a few hours. Some people were mad, others were amazed. It was the first time many white viewers saw the power of black church worship, and it shook them up. In 1972, something unexpected happened that changed Shirley Caesar's life. She recorded a song called Put Your Hand in the Hand of the Man from Galilee. It wasn't a song she wrote. It was first sung by Anne Murray in 1970, but Shirley's version was filled with soul and fire, and it won her a Grammy for Best Soul Gospel Performance. It was her first Grammy ever. But instead of just celebrating, the award caused a big fight. Many old-school gospel people were furious. They said Shirley was turning church music into entertainment. They said it sounded too much like pop music. But Shirley didn't back down. She said she was still singing for God, even if it sounded different. That Grammy put her in history as one of the first black gospel artists to really cross over into mainstream music. Even though people argued, it made her famous both in gospel music and outside it. Her Grammy speech was unforgettable. In a room full of pop and R&B stars, she stood up and said, "First, I want to thank God." That simple sentence made people stop and think. It was rare to hear something so bold in a non-religious setting. And while some critics complained that she had won with someone else's song, Shirley's performance was so powerful that nobody could ignore it. It marked a big change. Gospel music had always been seen as something separate from other music. But now Shirley was breaking that wall down. 3 years later, in 1975, Shirley went on tour in West Africa. What she saw there left a deep mark on her. At one outdoor concert, more than 250,000 people came to hear her sing. Many had walked for days with barely any food just to see her. She wasn't ready for the poverty she saw. It shocked her. She said it reminded her of what she'd seen growing up poor in the Jim Crow South. On stage, she started praying out loud, adding words about hunger and suffering that weren't part of the plan. She didn't care. She just wanted to connect with the people. But the tour was full of problems. The money they made was paid in local money, which they couldn't easily trade for American dollars. At one point, her team didn't even have enough money to fly back home. That tour changed her. It made her see her ministry work differently. After that, she started talking about poverty around the world in her messages back in America. But Shirley's calling wasn't just making music. In 1969, she started the Shirley Caesar Outreach Ministries in Durham. It happened after something she said broke her heart. She was eating Thanksgiving dinner in Florida, eating good food, laughing, having fun. Then she turned on the TV news and saw starving kids in Tennessee. Their stomachs were swollen. They looked just like the children she had seen in Africa. Right there, she decided she couldn't just sing anymore. She gave 50% of all her concert money to fund food and shelter programs. That choice almost destroyed her financially. She never took government money. She refused to. She only used what she made from concerts. Sometimes she even borrowed money from future shows, just to keep the lights on in her ministry. Her friends in the music business thought she was crazy, but she believed it was the right thing to do. In the late 1970s, Shirley did something else that shocked people. She started working with non-religious artists. Her 1978 album, Message for the People, mixed gospel with funk music. It made some pastors really mad, but fans loved it. The album sold over 1 million copies. That had never happened to her before. Her record sales went up by 400%. Soon, R&B artists started calling her to work together. Gospel music bosses started seeing that her style worked. They gave her bigger deals to sell her albums, and even non-religious radio stations played her songs. Shirley had opened the door, and now other artists were walking through it. In 1983, Shirley married Bishop Harold Ivory Williams. She was 44. The wedding was huge, with over 100 people in the wedding party. Her ring had 9 diamonds, one for each spiritual gift. But not everyone was happy. Her fans thought she was going to quit music to become a pastor's wife. Some people said she was turning her back on what God called her to do. But she wasn't quitting. She and her husband became co-pastors of a 1,500-member church in Raleigh. It was a big step, and she was determined to do both: sing and preach. From 1984 to 1986, Shirley won Grammys back-to-back, including one with Al Green for Salem in 1985 and another in 1986 for Martin. That caused more whispers and gossip. People in the gospel world started saying the awards were rigged and unfair. Some believed her growing fame had more to do with being popular than being pure. Others thought she had become the music industry's favorite person. She had now been nominated 17 times, more than any gospel artist in history by that point. Some said it was all about politics and connections, but Shirley kept going. She didn't try to explain herself. She just kept singing. The same year she got married, she also almost died. In early 1983, her tour bus slid on ice. She passed out and said she saw heaven. Paramedics saved her life. That moment led her to record "Jesus, I Love Calling Your Name." It became one of the most requested funeral songs in America. But every time she sang it, she remembered that crash. It wasn't just a song to her. It was her survival story. In 1985, she took another huge risk. At a time when people were really scared of AIDS, her church started welcoming patients with the disease. Most churches stayed quiet or shut their doors. Not Shirley. She made sure AIDS patients got hospital visits, help with funerals, and even care at home. At that time, almost half of Americans believed AIDS was a punishment for sin. Church families threatened to leave. Some sent her death threats, but she stood firm. She told them, "Jesus loves everyone." Between 1985 and 1989, they quietly helped more than 200 families. She never bragged about it. She just did it. By 1989, Shirley was honored as Artist of the Decade at the Stellar Awards, but she almost didn't make it. Years of touring had damaged her voice. She was doing 150 shows a year while still preaching. Doctors found bumps on her vocal cords. She needed steroid shots just to keep singing. The Live in Chicago album that helped win her the award was recorded while she was in pain. Her acceptance speech that night was barely loud enough to hear, but it brought people to tears. Even at her weakest, she gave thanks to God. In December 1991, she put out He's Working It Out for You. The album had 9 songs and ran for 44 minutes. It reached #1 on the gospel charts and even made it to number 95 on the R&B charts. This was during a time when gospel music was changing fast, but Shirley still led the way. Her voice was still strong and her message hadn't changed. She didn't need to sing about herself. She just sang the truth. In 1999, she was honored by the U.S. government with the National Heritage Fellowship. That came with a $10,000 award and a ceremony in Washington, D.C. It was the highest federal honor for traditional artists. Shirley didn't use the stage to talk about racism or music politics, but just being there said enough. She stood there as a woman who had been singing since she was 12, now being honored by the nation itself. In 1996, she sang at the Grammys with Whitney Houston and CeCe Winans. They performed A City Called Heaven and other gospel songs as part of a medley. Whitney was exploring her gospel roots at the time, and Shirley helped her shine. They also recorded He's All Over Me with the Georgia Mass Choir that same year. It wasn't just a song. It was a bridge between generations of singers. In 2016, something crazy happened. A clip of her 1988 song Hold My Mule went viral online. A DJ had remixed her excited list of Thanksgiving foods: beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, dogs, and turned it into the You Name It challenge. It blew up online. Millions of views, dance videos, memes. Shirley was 78 and on a cruise ship when she found out. A young church member showed her. She was shocked. She didn't even really understand what had happened. But suddenly, she was famous all over again. That same year, she put out It's All Right, It's Okay with Anthony Hamilton. It was a song about depression and emotional struggle. For the first time, she openly sang about mental health. The lyrics spoke directly to people who were barely holding on. It was bold. It was raw. And it hit home. She sang it live on BET's Celebration of Gospel, reaching even more hearts. In 2017, she got the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, her 11th Grammy honor. But it came during a time when mean rumors started spreading online. Fake videos said she had throat cancer. Others said she was dying. She had to make a video to stop the lies. "Unless I'm a living dead person, I don't know anything about it," she said with a smile. She was frustrated, but she stayed graceful. She told her fans she was healthy and asked them to stop sharing fake news. On July 4, 2014, while the rest of the country celebrated fireworks and freedom, Shirley Caesar lost the man who had been by her side for 31 years. Her husband, Bishop Harold Ivory Williams, died at 93. They had gotten married on June 27, 1983. She was 44 at the time and he was already a widower. From the beginning, their lives had been deeply connected, not just as husband and wife, but as co-pastors and music partners. He had played piano and sung on albums like Stand Still and Shirley Caesar Live. After he died, Shirley found herself alone, not just in their Raleigh home, but in leading their 1,500-member Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church. Thousands came to honor him during a 2-day funeral. But for Shirley, the silence he left behind was deafening and unbearable. The loss didn't just end in sadness. In 2015, a painful battle started behind closed doors. Shirley's 2 stepchildren, Harold Jr. and Hope, whom she had helped raise, started fighting over the estate and money. Even though she had treated them like her own kids, people whispered that they didn't want her to get what they thought belonged to them. The argument wasn't small. It was about church buildings, personal belongings, and the entire legacy of Bishop Williams' 37-year leadership of Mount Calvary Holy Churches of America. What hurt the most was the emotional distance that grew between her and the children she once called her blessings. But family pain wasn't new to Shirley. Back in 1989, when her mother, Hallie Caesar, died, everything changed. Some reports say it was actually 1991. Her mother had raised 13 children, mostly by herself, after Shirley's father died when she was only 7. Shirley had always been her mother's caregiver and helper. They were incredibly close, but after the funeral, ugly family fights came to the surface. Some of Shirley's siblings said she was using their mother's struggles to make her career better. They were jealous of her fame and the money they thought she wasn't sharing. Even her tribute album made to honor her mother led to fights over who should get paid. Now all 12 of her siblings are gone. Shirley is the only one left alive. For most of her life, Shirley carried another heartbreak in silence and secrecy. She never had biological children of her own. For years, she tried, she prayed, she went to doctors, but nothing worked. In 2000, she finally opened up about not being able to have kids. It had made her question her faith and left her in deep sadness that she had hidden from her church members for decades. She tried to turn that pain into purpose and helping others. Her church started programs for couples dealing with not being able to have children, offering support and even money to help with adoption. She called her stepchildren her miracle children. But even with all that love, the pain of never being a mother in the traditional sense never really went away. In 2024, the world almost believed she was dead. Social media exploded with fake claims that Shirley had died or was in the hospital with throat cancer. She was 85 and suddenly being mourned online while sitting alive in her Raleigh home. She had to record a video just to prove she was still living. Her voice shook when she said, "Unless I'm a living dead person, I don't know anything about it." The lies went so far that strangers started showing up at her house thinking they were visiting a memorial or gravesite. Fake death notices spread everywhere. YouTube videos used photos of other sick patients and claimed they were Shirley's final moments. All of it was false and made up. But the fear, the shock, and the invasion of her privacy were very real. The fake stories didn't stop. In early 2025, another story popped up online. This time, it said she had collapsed on stage during a concert and had been rushed to intensive care at a hospital. Even some news outlets believed it at first. Gospel music pages filled with prayers. Crowds gathered to mourn her again. Her team had to post more videos to show she was alive and well. It was another chapter in a string of vicious and mean rumors designed to scare and confuse people who loved her. Back in 2018, Shirley faced a scandal that nearly destroyed her reputation and good name. Someone claimed she had taken $2.3 million that was meant for the church and used it for herself. The story spread fast and wide. It started when a former church treasurer supposedly leaked financial records. They claimed the numbers didn't add up, and that money was being moved into private bank accounts. It was a shocking accusation and claim, but in the end, none of it was true. An independent audit by Ernst & Young showed that 98% of all donations had gone exactly where they were supposed to go. In fact, Shirley had even used her own money to help cover shortfalls when times were hard. In 2020, another blow came to her. This time it was about her music. Bloggers and critics said she stole songs like No Charge and Hold My Mule from lesser-known gospel artists from the 70s and 80s. They even pointed to an old track by Martha Williams and claimed Shirley had copied nearly 85% of it. At 81, Shirley was trying to revive her career and make music again, but now she was facing legal threats and sleepless nights. She almost walked away from it all and quit. But legal teams proved the songs were either original or properly licensed and paid for. She was cleared of all charges. Still, the damage lingered and stayed. Then came the most shocking story of all. In 2024, a fake will started going around online. It said she only had $2 million in assets and belongings when everyone knew she was worth much more, closer to $16 million. The will left out important family members and included strange transfers of property to hidden companies. Most disturbing was a man who came forward saying he was her secret son. He said she had written him letters and demanded a DNA test to claim part of her estate and money. He shared videos, showed what looked like legal papers, and tried to get the court involved. Shirley was devastated and heartbroken. She called it a heartbreaking lie and warned about the power of social media to ruin people's lives. Through all of it, Shirley never stopped showing up for her church. In 2025, she's 86 years old and still leading Mount Calvary. Even though she stepped back from preaching every week, she's still there, drawing more than 2,000 people each Sunday. Some drive in from Virginia and South Carolina just to hear her preach on First Lady Sundays. Despite health scares and fake stories online, her energy hasn't faded away. Her church is growing, not shrinking or getting smaller. It's what her church members now call a miracle. She hasn't just shaped her own path, she's shaped other people's paths too. She mentored Yolanda Adams and Kirk Franklin, guiding them to stay true to their roots. When Adams was offered $2.3 million for a non-religious record deal, Shirley told her to turn it down, warning it could damage her special gift from God. When Kirk Franklin was offered $5 million to work with Sean Diddy Combs, Shirley said the same thing. She believed that staying honest in your faith was more important than being famous. Franklin even said during his Walk of Fame speech, "Save some awards for the young people." Despite winning 11 Grammys and having a net worth of $16 million, Shirley chose a different path in life. She gives away about 75% of her concert money to charity. She's donated over $350,000 every year, helping homeless shelters, music programs, and ministries that serve thousands of people. She still lives in the same Raleigh home she's had for over 20 years. She owns a small store in Durham, and every bit of profit goes to help people during the holidays. Experts say she could have been worth over $40 million if she had saved it all for herself.